Yes, a very warm welcome from me. My name's Styrimanis. So yeah, very warm welcome here, and also we've got, for those of you joining us online, a warm welcome to you too. So yes, as Surya mentioned, we'll be meditating in here for the first half, and then in the second half, we'll all come back in here, and we'll hear from Danayutta, who's going to talk to us more about this figure on the shrine, green Tara. The shrine is beautifully sort of transformed, or sort of evolved, maybe is a better word for it, from yesterday. So we'll hear more about that in the second half. So yeah, do come on in. There's some cushions here, if nowhere else. Yeah, great. So in a moment we'll do the mindfulness of breathing practice. But I thought I'd just say a few things before that we might be able to bring into the practice. So I was just thinking, in these evenings we're evoking these different figures, and we're really entering the world of the imagination and the world of myth. And Surya was introducing us to this last night, and in a way I think that's evoking the importance of the imagination in terms of how we relate to our lives more broadly. I think that, in a way that can give us more of a sense of our lives being part of a whole, more of a sense of our actions sort of pulling together, and even just to give us more resolve, even in small actions. Surya was talking about living, how the Buddha living in a pleasure palace, the Buddha to be before he left home, living in a pleasure palace, and how our easy access to Netflix and the internet, in a way we've got our own sort of pleasure palace. I often think of that moment where I try and close my laptop before the next Netflix episode starts, and sort of putting it down and then trying to do something else before it sort of hooks me. That's often just like a bit of a, it's just one of those things you've got to do. I could relate to that as sort of leaving the pleasure palace, like closing the laptop and going for a walk or something and changing mode. You could relate to that in a much broader way. There's a kind of that dynamic as we've been exploring in myth and story, and that could be we can bring that kind of the motive forces that are there present in those stories into the things we need motivation for in our life on a much more day-to-day level as well. So we're doing that through these talks. We're looking at myth in the context of our whole lives. But I just want to say a little bit of something about imagination and meditation more specifically. So in a way, we're imagining all the time, using our imagination all of the time. We're faced with all the sort of raw data, if you like. Maybe that's a bit of a mechanistic way of putting it, but all the raw data of our senses and our... do come on in. Yeah, we've got some... Maybe put your hands up if there's cushions near you. We've got all of our experience just sort of through the senses, through our emotional life, through the thoughts that come and go in our head, and we're turning that into something. We're sort of binding that together all the time to create an experience that seems to make sense as a whole. We're doing that all of the time, and most of the time we're just doing it very, very habitually. We're just doing it the way that we're used to, effectively. So, in doing the mindfulness of breathing, I think it's very easy to do that just with the breath. We've got, we just pay attention to our breath. We're breathing all the time, and there we go. I'm breathing in and breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. There we go. It's sort of this thing, we know it's going on all the time. We just relate to it we can relate to it in a very habitual way. And there's more to it than that. We actually have a choice there. We could sort of if we can engage our imagination in a different way, in a new way, we can have a whole new experience of the breath. And in order for it to keep our attention so that our mind isn't wandering all the time, we need to find ways to make it interesting. Now, I sort of say it's not quite the same as fantasy. So fantasy would be something that is disconnected from direct experience. So I'm not sort of breathing and now I don't know, now I'm Superman or something. The sort of complete leap away from the direct experience of the breath. But we might be able to take the direct experience, get really close to it, and sort of see it in a fresh way, and sort of allow it to be, allow it to sort of form, to sort of fuse, if you like, create a fusion, a union with a different perspective on it that can bring it much more to life. So I'd suggest particularly with breathing, like I think when I first started doing this practice, I immediately was like, okay, so I'm watching my breath, what is that? And I kind of would catch myself every now and then sort of playing through a kind of an image of the lungs that I had from GCSE biology that was just a diagram in itself of like things, and they go there, and then the bronchioles, and then they go into those bits, and then the diaphragm goes down, and the air comes in and out. And I was like, that's breathing, right? That's and that is one way of imagining breathing. It's one way of taking the experience of my chest seems to move out and go back in, and tying that together into a complete picture. But it's only one way, and that's no more. That was a diagram that I was imagining in my head. That's no more real than anything else. And so I want to suggest that when we're doing the practice in a sec, that we ask ourselves particularly two questions. One is, what is the breath? Yeah, so what is the breath? Even if I imagine it's like air coming in, I tried to do this just now, so I'm imagining it's air coming in and out. And then I sort of imagined, in cartoons when you see like puffs of air and it's got little curly lines at the end, like someone's blowing out, it goes, poof. I was like, that's how I imagine air. So that's one, air with the little puffy lines, that's one way of doing it. But we could experience it also as just movements of energy or movements of light even. If our eyes are closed, we're just paying attention to the direct experience. What actually is that? And what seems to be the most appropriate way of actually relating to that? What actually is the breath? So it's just a question to ask yourself. It might be that, the idea of air coming in and out doesn't sort of wake us up from a sleepy, distracted state in a way that imagining streams of light coming in and out might. So what works? And make sure that, of course, it's the direct experience. What are we actually experiencing in relation to, opened up, if you like, by the imaginative faculty, rather than fantasy, just coming from somewhere else entirely. And the other question I suggest, so the first one is, what is the breath? And the second question is, where is the breath? So typically, again, with the GCSE biology model, I've got the breath comes down here, it goes there, somewhere around there, and then it comes back out again. Pay attention to your experience. Where is the breath is it just here? Because I personally find if I pay attention to the experience of my whole body, and we'll keep opening up our awareness to include the whole body, I can experience something of whatever is going on with the breath in my feet, in the whole space of the body, even outside of it. And the question of where it comes and goes, I have no idea. You could explore. Maybe the breath's coming and going out the bottom of your body. You breathe it up from the ground and then breathe it back down into the earth. Maybe it's coming into your heart. Maybe it's coming through the sides of your body. I don't know what it is. And you might just does any one of them feel more accurate than the other? Does anyone feel more true than another? Just explore what that could be like, and then find what's working. If you're feeling very sort of anxious and up here, sometimes you're just breathing everything down into the floor. It's wonderful. So anyway, there's loads of things you could try, and in a way that's a sort of lifetime exploration, I think, with this practice. But the main thing I want to encourage you to do is just to really ask that question very directly of your experience. What is the breath and where is the breath? And we'll do that while we're doing the mindfulness of breathing. So, yeah, let's set up to meditate. And I'll ring bells, and as we do the stages, I'll remind you of what the stages are. I'll just very briefly lead us into the meditation. So taking a moment, just do any shuffling around you need to do so that you can sit very still for half an hour or so. And just feel the weight of your body dropping down, to be met by the support of the cushions and the floor or the chair. Like the roots of a tree growing down into the ground. Seeing if you can let go just a little bit more. Letting go of any expression on your face. And letting go of your shoulders. And allowing your spine to just rise up naturally. Your head just poised at the top of your neck. Like the branches of a tree grow up towards the sun. Allowing your chest to open. Sitting poised and confident. And expanding your awareness to fill the whole space of your body, even slightly beyond. If it shrinks down, stretching it out again. Opening up to the totality of your experience. And through that experience is the breath. The mindfulness of breathing. In the first stage, placing a number at the end of the out-breath. Noticing the number at the beginning of the in-breath.
letting go of the counting, watching the whole of the breath in the whole of the body. Maintaining a broad awareness, but finding a point of focus at the place where the breath enters and leaves the body. letting go of any effort that you're making to watch the breath, but staying sitting perfectly still for a few moments more. And opening yourself up to the effects of the meditation. Okay, so I have time for a tea break. So if you're in here, you can go next door, have a cup of tea and chat to one another. And if you're online, do get yourself a cup of tea, and I'll stay here and Michael's going to join me and we'll have a chat with you. So, and then after the break we'll come back and we'll hear from Danayutta. Grab some cushions. Great, thank you very much. Take my scarf off. Now that I can see myself. So yeah, if you're with us online, then this is Michael. Michael's a good friend of mine. Also lives and works with me here at the London Buddhist Centre. And this is a fairly new thing for me in terms of talking to an iPad and a camera. So Michael's given me.
And we get tea as well.
We get tea as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
biscuits as well.
Thank you very much. And biscuits.
It's
We've got two bourbons
and
and
two
two
digestives.
digestives, but do we do a switch?
Well, you can have,
Do you wanna have
you
one of
yeah,
each?
one of each.
Okay, you can have that one, and I'll have this one.
It's very good service we get here. Alright, should we answer
So,
some questions if there are any?
Yeah, great. I wonder if there you've moved the camera.
There we go.
We can see everything slightly in delay as well. Yeah, it'd be good to hear. There are a few things it'd be good to hear from you if you're with us online. I'd be interested to hear how your meditation was. If we were here in the tea room, I might say, "How was your meditation?" So, how was your meditation? And it would also be good to hear if you're joining in with the urban retreat, how that's going and what it is that you're doing. So you were saying something about the text messages as well.
Oh yeah, well I noticed that today, actually maybe I shouldn't say because I know the text messages for tomorrow.
So I would give it away.
I think the one today was something about going on a walk, wasn't it?
Yeah,
going
we
on
had
a mindful walk. So I wonder if people are actually doing what we're asking in the text, because it's quite nice. I'd quite like in the morning if somebody told me to do something like go for a walk or
yeah.
do something nice for somebody else.
What should we tell you to do?
But it's a good reminder, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I wonder if
could
anybody's
start
been
trying to
doing
do
it.
that. I could.
You could tell me in the morning, yeah.
I sometimes see Michael making his breakfast. I could come up with something. I also wondered while we're waiting to hear from some of you, it'd be really good if we could show the shrine as well. I'm aware that here I can see the screen. What we've got is just me and Michael, but we've got this beautiful shrine that Ruth's made. So maybe it'd be a good chance to show you that as well. So yeah, if I wonder if Matt, you're able to sort of, Matt's looking at the instructions and he's rapidly working out how to show you how to twist the camera and show you what we've got on the shrine over here. That's great. Brilliant. So and maybe you could go down slightly as well, Matt. So I'll do a little guided tour. So Ruth is our wonderful shrine maker, and she's been sort of evolving this shrine over the last few over the course of this week. And I know that she's particularly wanting to feature these 7 bowls that we've got. So this week's building up to Saturday night, which is the 3rd anniversary of the death of Urgyen Sangharaskshita, who we call Bante, who's the founder of the tradition that the London Buddhist Centre is part of and the order that I'm part of. And these 7 bowls are made out of a clay that was dug out of the burial mound in which he's buried. So that's a symbol of that. And also we've got the kind of part of the starry backdrop is editions of his collected poems, which are rather nice editions, and they sort of add to the kind of starry night theme with the moon. And today we've got lots of extra greenery for Green Tara, who we'll hear more about in a sec. So
we're actually, as of today, we're selling some more ceramics, also made of that clay in our bookshop.
Very good. Michael also runs the LBC bookshop.
Yes, if you want some ceramics made of Bante clay, come to the LBC.
I didn't realise that was the case. Yes, so a local order member called Cicerica is a wonderful, do you say ceramicist?
Ceramicist, yeah.
Potter? I don't know what you say, but she makes wonderful ceramics, including lots of these of this same clay. And I've seen
I actually got a necklace today. This necklace is also made of the clay.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really nice.
I just got that today. Probably can't see it, but it's quite nice.
See, you got a sales slot as well.
Got a sales slot. Some people Kenya's been saying, take a short mindful walk, broaden your awareness, feel your feet, listen to the sounds around you.
That's the text.
And that was the text today. Yeah. That's very nice. And Lois is saying she really likes the text. Oh, sorry if you're a man, Lois. But Lois is saying, I really like the text twice a day. Did my mindful walk, look at the trees, which are so colourful now.
Yeah, great. And also Zandra said she walked by the canal instead of the main road because of the text message. It took longer, but it was nice. So yeah, I've been doing that a little bit. I tend to walk around the park. We're lucky to live close to Victoria Park, but I've got a sort of regular route that I tend to do and I can easily do that slightly automatically. But I've started walking across the middle. It's just really nice just to walk. It's like radical. You can actually walk across the grass rather than so little changes like that to be like, oh, I can appreciate it a bit more.
That's quite nice.
But sometimes we just need to be reminded to do things like that, don't we? Sort of. Have you been doing anything that's come up in the text?
No, but I know the one that's tomorrow, and I actually thought, tomorrow morning I will try and do that.
Okay, great. Don't give it away.
I won't give it away.
Don't give it away. No, I'm spilling biscuit.
How was your meditation,
As well.
Sir Manus? Can you meditate when you're leading a class?
I sometimes feel like I meditate better when leading a class.
Right.
My teacher, Maitreya Bandhu, said, the most important thing about leading a meditation class is that you meditate yourself. And I think to begin with, I sort of thought, I should probably be thinking about what I'm going to say next or so on. But I do feel like you're sort of, maybe it's something about the fact that everyone's meditating facing you.
Right, yeah.
You've sort of,
Like receiving it almost.
You're really meditating with the room, yeah. It's like you can sort of feel, so I feel quite sort of, aware of how the room's doing. And I feel like I don't know which way around this goes, it's the chicken or the egg, but I sometimes feel like if I have a stronger meditation, it's often that people in the room have had a stronger meditation as well. It's hard to say whether that's me, I don't think it's just me, or whether it's the room. It's a bit like actors and an audience, I think. Sometimes like an audience is really still and concentrated, and then the actors just sort of respond, and it gets, what they're doing gets better, and then the audience kind of pays more attention.
Yeah, well, I like the idea that we're all each other's conditions in a way, so if the person next to me is meditating and they're really still, that's going to make me a bit more stiller. And then if we're all doing that together, then the whole atmosphere just becomes really still and concentrated. I felt really still, actually. It's almost sometimes in the class, I open my eyes and a bit surprised that I go, oh yeah, there's tons of people. It's a bit of a surprise. It's quite, definitely felt that today.
Be interested to know how your meditation was as well. So if you had anything particularly, we were trying this approach of engaging the imagination, so anything that came up in that I'd be really interested to hear, or any questions that came up out of that as well, and do put them in the chat box. But,
Might be that everybody's having their tea. Oh.
Woosley Yoga says, when I teach and practice in groups, it feels like the practice is powered up. That's one way of putting it. Yeah, it's sort of, there's a sort of extra momentum, there's an extra sort of power in the room.
Oris, I really enjoyed your guidance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Iris. How was your meditation?
It was okay. I was a bit distracted, but then at some point, maybe in the third stage, actually surprised. It kind of caught me off guard. Actually, I felt quite absorbed. I was thinking about the question you asked about, where is the breath and what is the breath. That's quite interesting. Lately, I've been trying to almost imagining the breath kind of coming through my back and then out of my stomach, rather than in through my mouth. More just in through my back, out through my belly, and then almost can I just not get in the way of that? Just a bit of a kind of imaginative exercise. It's been quite interesting to do.
What's that like, particularly that kind
Especially the back thing, I think. It's so easy to hold tension in my back. So I'm just opening my back, and then in a way, out through the chest. It's a bit more out into the world, or wow, it feels very nice actually. And a bit less just a bit less automatic, a little bit more focused. And then what was the other thing you're saying? What is the breath? That's also quite interesting, because you can kind of feel almost that maybe there is just breath. I was kind of thinking that a bit today. That, because they say, this thing about in between atoms there's more space than the atoms themselves, kind of thing. So mostly air or empty space. I was kind of thinking about that a bit. Maybe, maybe there is just breath. Or that was the little idea I was playing with.
And I think I was on a retreat recently, and I was this sentence came to me in terms of how to relate to the breath. It was something like, breath is it's like the raw matter of our experience. It's like the waveform of our experience. Something. It's like the sort of it's like everything else can take place within that. So our emotion, our imagination, our felt experience. I think I can get a sense in meditation that it's all the breath is kind of threaded through all of that in a way. It's
The raw matter of our experience. I like that.
It's sort of, again, it's poetic expression, it's a poetic way of looking at it, but I think partly what I was trying to say about the imagination is in a way our experience is always sort of the nature of metaphor or poetry or like it's malleable in that way, and we can sort of it can become something richer if we engage with it in that way. We've got some responses. Yes, 65% of the universe is dark matter.
Oh, there you go.
Well. There you go. That's what
it's a very precise number,
65%. And let's see. So Julia was saying she fell asleep during meditation, which, yeah, that's relatively familiar, particularly in the evening, isn't it?
Oh, Kenya did too.
Kenya said she fell asleep too. But Kenya said it still found it good and tried to find pleasure to keep awake, and that worked at points. So that can be sometimes when we're falling asleep. Yeah, we just sort of we just need to sort of find. We talked about sort of finding power in practice or something. It's like we need to find more brightness, more energy in the practice, and there can be. Pleasure can be a way of doing that. If we're interested in pleasure, we naturally move towards what we find enjoyable. So in this experience of the breath, for example, you're describing this sort of route you found with the breath moving through your body.
And that is quite pleasurable, actually. Especially something about a little bit of pain can actually be pleasurable. Like just like not enough, obviously not getting overwhelmed by it, but just like a little bit more like pressure. Actually the heat and that pressure, I find there's usually like a way into that's just a bit more. There's like a bit of feeling in there, a bit something to kind of hook onto.
It's pain, sort of like you're talking about the kind of tension in your back or something.
Yeah, maybe not necessarily like pain as in it's hurting, but it's more like quite like almost like a tightness. Noticing a tightness, it feels like room to open in a way.
Yeah, and even sort of pain that is a bit more persistent or something. I think it's, we want to be careful about how we get into this, but it's possible even to look for pleasure even in that. It's possible that even the sort of sensations that we immediately relate to as painful, if you look more closely at them, they might not be quite as solid as you imagine. You look a bit closer, you might even be able to look and see, is there even pleasure in this? Sometimes you've got an achy knee or something and you look at it more closely. Well, really, what's that actually like, rather than just painful knee? What's that actually like? And it might just be some warmth.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like a bit hot, and that might even be might even be pleasure in that somehow. So the nature of our experience is so, and this is in a way this points at something very profound that we're looking for. We're sort of we can find as we look more deeply at our experience, but the experience itself is malleable according to how we relate to it. So even what we thought might be painful could be pleasurable.
Yeah, it's easy to try and immediately push it away, isn't it, without really investigating it. I think you're saying we should try and investigate our experience a bit more further, rather than jump into the conclusion of it's pain, I don't want to feel that. Charlie was saying something interesting. He was saying about doing a mantra to coincide with the breaths. Or maybe he's trying to do too much at once.
So yeah, Charlie, so to say mantra to coincide with the in and out breaths. In a way, it's good. It's really good to experiment, isn't it, and to see what works. The mantra might just give a bit more sort of colour and sort of, especially if it's connected with one of the figures we're talking about in these evenings. There's a whole kind of myth and a kind of sense of a presence and another mind that's sort of coming into that. So if that's kind of colouring the meditation, that might bring it to life all the more. And it might be that works for a bit, and then it does find that it gets a bit too much or a bit busy, or you're sort of. Sometimes I find things that I find work in meditation, they work for a little bit, and then I can sort of hold on to it a bit tightly. Then I need to be creative again. Kind of thing.
Yeah, quite similarly, Julia was saying that as part of the breathing, I let the energy settle in my heart area, kind of a bit of metta bhavana sneaking in. I quite like that.
Yeah. Bit of metta bhavana sneaking in.
Yeah, I thought it as well a little bit towards the end, almost kind of forget what practice I was doing. Immediately started thinking about somebody. I think maybe that's even would you say that's a natural kind of thing to happen in a way when we get more absorbed, kind of starts bringing in more of ourselves, more emotion coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the metta bhavana and the mindfulness of breathing are, they're two different routes towards the same thing in a way, or at least sort of in the direction of the same thing. So you'd hope as you get more absorbed in the mindfulness in the breath, that the heart can open quite naturally. I noticed that somebody came to mind in my meditation just then, as I was at the point where I was a bit more absorbed, and I sort of was just smiling to have them come to mind. I had a similar moment of being like, oh, it's sort of like I'm doing the metta bhavana, and rather than being like, I'm not supposed to be doing this, it's like, oh, that was nice. That was a little moment of just something that's opening up. Of course, I could easily then get a bit lost in terms of like, oh, am I doing the metta bhavana or am I doing this? So it's good to have a decision around what practice you're doing, so that you've got the kind of hook. But hopefully it does open up. Hopefully, the mindfulness of breathing now allows us to have a sort of simple... I'm just waving this biscuit around, I'm not even eating it. Allows us to have a kind of... the mindfulness practice can give us a sort of simple, pared back, calm, absorbed sort of approach that we can take into the metta bhavana. But hopefully the metta bhavana can give warmth and a heart-opening kind of quality to the mindfulness of breathing as well. So, which is why it's so good to do both, and just to keep alternating the two if you can.
It's almost like when you get more integrated, just naturally you get into a more positive state of mind, I suppose. And then that certainly felt like what you were describing, and in my meditation as well. It was like when my mind went away from grosser distraction, it kind of naturally turns to a bit more positivity, or a bit more kind of other regarding aspects.
Let's see. Well, we've got... So, Woosley Yoga is asking, can I ask in the mindfulness of breathing a practice, what was the count I mentioned at putting the number on the end of the exhale? Okay, I'll briefly say that. So we've got... It's worth saying that there are videos on our YouTube channel of the sort of basics of the practice, which are worth watching. I realise that in these live classes often we don't have time to sort of explain the sort of the basics of the practice beyond that. The mindfulness of breathing overall is relatively simple. The one thing that maybe requires a bit more explanation is these first two stages of counting, and all we're doing in that really is that we're mainly just watching the breath, but we just drop in a number for the first stage right at the end of the out breath. So I breathe in, I breathe out, and as I finish breathing out, I place the number 1 just quietly to myself. Breathe in, breathe out, 2, all the way to 10, and then start again at 1. And if you get distracted, or if you go beyond 10 by mistake or whatever, it's fine, you just start again at 1. And it just gives you a bit of an anchor. It just gives you something to kind of, something slightly more to do than just watch the breath, so that as we sit down to meditate, we might be a little bit less focused, and it gives us something extra to do. And then in the second stage, we go, instead of counting the end of the out breath, we put a number instead at the beginning of the next in breath. So in terms of time, very little difference between the two, but it means that as you start, there's a slightly different quality between the two. In a way, I'd leave it to you to find out what that is, but placing the number in the first stage at the end of the out breath, we bring more attention to the out breath, and placing it at the beginning of the in breath, we bring more attention naturally to the in breath. So that has a different quality.
I think there's an announcement going on.
There's an announcement going on next door. Surya Naga's next door. We've got the. It all seems suddenly very deathly quiet in here because we've had all the buzz of noise from people having tea next door. But I might suggest a couple of things as well that probably similar things to what Surya Naga is suggesting. So those of you who are with us online. Mainly, I'd really encourage you to give, if you can, to the LBC. So I was trying to think of how to say this the other day. It's like the London Buddhist Centre is in a way, it's not a thing. There's this physical building, and which some of you will have been to, and some of you may not have been to. But so if you've not been here, then there's a YouTube page, and there's a in a way, it's the London Buddhist Centre really is just the people here. So I came along to the London Buddhist Centre 7 years ago, and there were meditation classes that I could come to for free, and people who were interested in me and willing to befriend me and get to know me and give me things that I can ask if I wanted to help out, and I started to help out a bit, and there was sort of and now I'm in a position of saying, why don't you support the LBC? It's not because I'm I don't represent an institution in a sense. I'm part of I'm one of many people, including all of us, who just benefit from this, if you like, this sort of focus point of people coming together to practice together, and that place, that sort of focus of people being able to come together and practice together is supported by those people and the generosity of those people, those who, all of the teaching that we do here at the centre is voluntary. No one's paid to teach here or on retreats. All of the people who help out, and a lot of the cleaning of the centre, even Michael and I both work here at the centre, and we, like everyone else who works here at the centre, is just paid a support package of what we need, rather than a sort of salary that's graded according to levels of seniority or anything like that. So in a way, everyone's just giving what we can, to different degrees, whether it's coming along to the centre and putting a bit of money into a bowl, to pouring some tea, or to making it the main sort of focus of one's working life, etc., so that together we're creating a momentum out of which these teachings that certainly I know you have really benefited from. I've known Michael for about 4 years. 4 years. And just and we've become very good friends in that time, and even just sort of seeing you change over that time, and seeing that happen to sort of other people as they come along and get involved, this sort of communal project that seems to just grow people, if you like. We're just growing bigger people, and hopefully you've, in joining in online, and whether you've just joined in for the first time today, or whether you've been joining in for a while online, hopefully you've been feeling some of the same benefit in your life. And I just really encourage you, because we definitely need the money as we sort of grow, and especially as we want to. We're really working out, now that we're open much more, how we can keep doing things online, how we can develop what we do online and keep reaching more people and keep providing good stuff for you all as well. And that really requires resources, and that requires people to be working on it full time and supported, and so on, and equipment like this camera we're watching on, and so on. So if you can support us financially, then please do. But also, I'd really encourage you to do that to feel a part of it in a way. If each of us is giving to this same project, if you like, then we can feel like we're a part of it, we're contributing, and it's not a sort of an outside institution that we sort of benefit from. Instead, it's something that we're a part of. So I'd really encourage you to do that. And the way that would be most helpful, I'd really encourage you to take out a standing order. Actually, not a standing order, it's a direct debit. And throughout this urban retreat, what we're asking, the urban retreat's offered in completely for free, and what we're asking is that people consider taking out a direct debit of £25 a month. So that would be a payment of £25 that would come out of your account each month. And if you can, you might, if you have more, if you're able to give more than that, please do. If you're not able to give that, then you could please consider giving a slightly smaller amount. But I'd really encourage you, if there's currently 59 people on this call, I can't do the maths, but if you all gave £25 a month, that would make an enormous difference to what we're able to do as a centre, both here in person and online as well. So I'd really encourage you to do that, and we'd be really, really grateful to that. Those of us who would be helping put that money into use, and many more people like yourselves to be able to benefit. So I'd really encourage you to do that. I'd also really encourage you to if you've not been here and can at some point come, please do. That'd be great. It'd be really nice to meet you. I know that some of you are in far further afield than would be able to come to the centre, but if you can't, do consider coming on a retreat if you can. Sometimes to go away for a period. For example, we run this winter retreat across the 22nd of December to the 1st of January. I'd really particularly encourage you to come to that. People come to that from all over, from different countries and so on. So consider kind of paying a visit to the LBC, not actually at the LBC, but in Herefordshire, where we can have many more people and have a really big sort of gathering of sort of more than 100 people we tend to get on the winter retreat. You're going to be there, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to be there. My third time there, actually.
Yeah,
it's really good. Have you been there quite a lot?
Been there a lot as well. It was a big part of my sort of getting involved was just seeing the sort of collective weight of what it was doing with all those people.
Yeah, it's a very magical retreat, actually.
What was your experience when you first went?
Well, I think the first time I went, I was quite stunned actually by just the kind of gravity of what was going on and just how loving the whole thing was. I think it was described on a video that Danayutta did lately. It's like heaven on earth, and I definitely since then I've been thinking, oh yeah, it really is kind of like heaven on earth, because it's kind of really distilled, kind of like quite refined kind of community in a way where people are just really in touch with something a lot more than their day-to-day minds and day-to-day way of interacting with each other. She's really lovely. And really doing that very intensely over quite an intense time of year. It's very dark and very cold, but everybody kind of comes together and it's kind of really warm, lovely atmosphere. Beautiful shrine room, lots of candles and lots of kind of togetherness. I really love doing it. I'm going to be cooking with a few other friends on it this year, which would be a really lovely thing to do. I'm really looking forward to it. It's a real kind of highlight in a way.
I think it's the LBC at its best, really. It's like sort of everything that we do in classes and as a community, and reaching out to people, and sort of putting together like evenings that sort of seem to flow as a kind of almost as a sort of as a drama or as a ritual or something. That there's something just very sort of something very energized and energizing about it. And I'd really we got people coming back in, so I better stop talking, but I'd really encourage you to consider booking on that, either the first 5 days or the second 5 days, which are almost sold out.
I think they're now sold out actually.
Are they actually?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
you can do the full 10 as well if you want to do the whole thing.
Yeah, I'd say that would be the best thing to do if you can do the full 10 days. I'd really encourage that. We better leave, hadn't we? It's been nice chatting with you. Great.
Thanks for having me.
We'll hand over to Danayutta. So nice to see you all. Let's get rid of some of these mugs and things. Didn't get to my tea.
Which one?
I got this in India. She's actually blue. Well, it's bronze. Yeah. Yeah, makes it green. It's green. Yeah, do keep coming in. There's lots of cushions on this side of the room. Yeah.
Would you mind taking the bourbon? The bourbon. Save you from myself. You can eat it. But I think... Sorry, this is a little kerfuffle going on here because Sturman has left the bourbon on the shrine table, and Poppy just asked, "Can I eat it?" Which you can, but the thing is that Sturman has been like waving it around whilst he's like talked on the YouTube tea break. So you could eat it, but maybe I advise against it. Okay. Yeah, so welcome back. And if you were with Abhay Nandi downstairs in our breathing space shrine room, learning the practice we've been teaching today, welcome to the main shrine room. If you've just come to the Buddhist Center today, you've basically just like joined the urban retreat, and we're having a special urban retreat evening. And the urban retreat goes all the way till Saturday. And it's just like such a nice thing to do, because basically the LBC, the London Buddhist Center, becomes like your kind of like local Buddhist temple, and we really do try to make a bit of a thing of it. And one of the ways that we do that is by giving a sequence of teaching. And then another way we've been doing that on this particular urban retreat is by making these special shrines to the figures that we've been evoking. So I just wanted to introduce the figure on the shrine and evoke the figure on the shrine. And this particular figure is Green Tara. So if you're on YouTube, I brought a Green Tara with me. A smaller one that I could hold up so you don't sort of miss out. But both these figures, the one that I'm holding in my hand and also the one that is on the shrine, both of them normally reside, not here at the London Buddhist Center, they normally reside in my small shrine room, which is really a cupboard in the center of my flat, about 10 minutes walk away. So I've got this cupboard where I sit in to meditate. It's about the size of like 3 meditation mats, and so I meditate in front of these 2 Tara figures every morning. So what we're going to do is I'll talk for a bit and we'll end the evening by invoking Green Tara. But just to say, how many of you have never heard of Green Tara before this evening? So just, who's in the room? Okay, so a good half of the room have never heard about Green Tara. She's actually a very, very well-known and well-loved figure in Tibetan Buddhism. Probably the most well-known of bodhisattvas. Bodhisattva just means a being of enlightenment. And the most sort of like well-known bodhisattva in Tibetan Buddhism. In fact, she is so well-loved that she doesn't just belong to one Buddha family. She, in fact, belongs to 2 Buddha families. So she belongs to the Lotus family. So the Red family, the family of meditation, the family of the Buddha Amitabha, who will be evoking on Thursday evening. And it's also the family of the magic rite of fascination and attraction. And she also belongs to a different Buddha family, the Karma family. So karma means action, and that's the green family, the family of the Buddha Amoghasiddhi, and the family of all-accomplishing wisdom. So I must say, although we tend to talk about her a bit more on the Lotus, and we talk about her sort of as a quintessence of compassion, which I'll go into a little bit more in the second part of my talk. I must say, personally, I'm a little bit more attracted to action. I'm a little bit more attracted to this, wisdom of that accomplishes all. So, whether or not you've heard of Green Tara before this evening, what about this thing of all-accomplishing wisdom? What do you think it might mean? Anyone? What might all-accomplishing wisdom mean? Okay, okay. Drew said enlightenment. Just like that, you know? No, but seriously, what would all-accomplishing wisdom look like? As an aspect of enlightenment, what would it mean? Yeah, go on, Alex.
Knowing everything.
Knowing everything. Okay, so if you can accomplish everything, you would know everything. Yeah? Anyone else?
To be selfless.
To be selfless, because...
Because you're wise.
Yeah, okay. To be selfless because you're wise, yeah. Anyone else? Accomplishments?
Knowing enough to be able to do everything.
Yeah, knowing enough to be able to do everything. Yeah, was that a hand up, Brian?
Yeah, I was thinking about someone say, if I had all-encompassing wisdom, I'd probably decide to try and transcend that. Because, like, you can do everything.
You can do everything. Yeah, okay.
You can do everything. Is there a higher level?
Is there a higher level than being able to do everything?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Because you don't have to, not needing to do anything.
Not needing to do anything.
Because,
Yeah, okay. So not needing to do anything might be a higher level than being able to do everything. Okay, interesting. Anyone else? Was that a hand, Leslie?
I was just thinking getting things done.
Getting things done. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's quite interesting to hear your responses to all-accomplishing wisdom. In a way, I thought that perhaps I would start by saying what all-accomplishing wisdom is not. And what all-accomplishing wisdom is not is busyness. Yeah? So it's not rushing around trying to do everything. It doesn't mean rushing around trying to do everything really, really fast and in record time and better than anyone else. So I think sometimes what can happen is that we move fast because we're driven by hopes and fears. And often when we're driven by hopes and fears, or solely driven, or driven too much by hopes and fears, we don't actually end up accomplishing very much. Or what the other thing that can happen is that what we're trying to do is not actually worthy of the effort that we're putting in. So sometimes what can happen is that we mistake something mundane and probably won't be ultimately satisfying for something that will satisfy. Yeah. It's almost like we lose sight of our highest ideals and we just get caught up with really, really seemingly important things, which are not actually important at the end of the day. I used to work here at the London Buddhist Center, and we Buddhists, we go away a lot on retreat. And I just had come back from quite a long retreat, and that's one of those things where, when you're busy, when you take a holiday, it's almost like you're really busy up to your holiday or your retreat, and then you come back to this like explosion after your inbox and lots of things to do. So that was like what happened to me, and one of the things that landed in my inbox whilst I was away was an email from somebody who I was going to lead a retreat with quite soon afterwards. Maybe it was something like I was going to lead a retreat with somebody else in 3 weeks, and he just said, I can't do it. And the reason, what he said to me in his email was, basically my partner's ill, she's in hospital, and we don't know what's wrong with her, and I just can't go away for a weekend at this point. I can't commit to leading the retreat with you, so I'm really, really sorry. You're going to have to find somebody else. So I read that email, and then I quickly wrote to another friend and said, hey, do you want to lead this retreat with me? It is in 3 weeks. Please. And then I thought, okay, let me just like file that first email to the reply later sort of folder. And then I realized that we're in the business of running a Buddhist center, and somebody's just told me that their partner's really ill, they don't know what's wrong, and I've just said, I'll reply to you later. I just thought, what am I doing? Anyway, I just thought, like, well, okay, it's because I'm just busy, I'm just caught up. And actually, the thing I really need to do right now is just write back to my friend and say, I'm really sorry. Sorry to hear about your partner. Is there anything I can do? In fact, he only lives like down the road. So it's just like basically triaging my emails and like chose the wrong bucket to put it in. And that is what happens when we're busy. We don't see situations very clearly. We don't see other people very clearly. We have a mistaken way of prioritizing our lives. And what can happen if we're not careful is that people become like tools, either tools that can help us, so our allies, or they become objects that hinder us, are kind of like enemies, yeah. And that is such an impoverished way to be, So that's the near enemy of all-accomplishing wisdom. It sort of looks like all-accomplishing, but it's not really. It's just busyness and rushing around. So the far enemy of all-accomplishing wisdom, so sort of like what's opposite, is, I guess, laziness. So you don't do anything. And in fact, in the Buddhist tradition, busyness is actually regarded as a form of laziness. Yeah, busyness is regarded as a form of laziness. But to be honest, I'm not sure if people genuinely don't do anything. Probably our laziness of doing nothing looks a little bit like randomly consuming in a neurotic fashion. So, I don't know, it's kind of like a mindless consumption of surfing eBay or whatever your favorite fashion site is, watching box sets. Manas was talking about the difficulty of closing his laptop before the next episode of Netflix plays. If you're playing games on your phones, reading really trashy things like the Daily Mail online. So reading unedifying materials, just unedifying input. Most of us probably don't do nothing. Most of us probably just mindlessly consume. And that is very, very different to the higher spiritual practice of really doing nothing. Like really, really doing nothing. Just to sit and not be preoccupied, and just to be able to be content, happy for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, a whole hour, a whole afternoon, a whole 2 weeks on retreat, maybe. So busyness and laziness very, very close together. There is, in fact, a Zen proverb, and this relates to Tara's form, which I'll say a little bit more in a moment. But busyness, if the Zen proverb that goes, I'll just tell you because I like it so much. If you are busy, you should meditate for an hour. If you're very busy, you should meditate for 2 hours. I mean, anyone dare to take that advice? I think it's important because if we can come from a place, a wiser place, basically. We will accomplish more. So all-accomplishing wisdom is not just knowing how to accomplish things or being able to accomplish things. It's also knowing what is important to accomplish. So I just want to go back to the form of Tara and say something about the form that might teach us a little bit more about all-accomplishing wisdom. I was having a conversation with somebody. Yes, what's your name again? Yes. Amita. I was having a conversation with Amita in the courtyard, partly looking at the fireworks that were going off, but also partly saying about symbols of enlightenment, yeah? So this evening we're going to finish by chanting the Tara mantra, and that's a sound symbol of enlightenment. But these Buddha figures, they're sort of like form symbols, visual symbols of enlightenment. And I often think of these visual symbols a little bit like a map. It's a map of how to practice and a map of how to get there. Yeah? So, you've got Tara, and she's sitting in an unusual position. Most of the time we get Buddha figures that sit like this big Buddha here in the shrine room with their legs in lotus position. But Tara has her legs, one leg, her left leg is in lotus position, but her right leg is stepping out of lotus position down into the world, yeah? So she's stepping out into the world. And then you also have her hands. Her left hand is in the gesture of fearlessness. So this palm raised up with your fingers pointing upwards. It's the Abhaya Mudra, and it's the gesture of fearlessness, yeah? And then her right hand is in the Varada Mudra, so Varada gesture, and that's a gesture of supreme giving, yeah? So all-accomplishing wisdom looks a little bit like that. One foot in meditation, so firmly grounded in the depths of what meditation can give us, and then also really, really, really stepping out into the world, generously acting for the liberation of all beings, and without fear of other people, without fear for themselves, and without fear for situations or agendas or loss or whatever it is that whatever it is that stops us from acting, stops us from connecting, stops us from being alongside others. Yeah? Okay. So that's one aspect of Tara I wanted to evoke, the all-accomplishing aspect. I should really find that very exciting. And then the other thing I wanted to evoke was the quick way to enlightenment. So, Tara as the quick way to enlightenment. I don't usually meditate on Tara. I do meditate in front of Taras, like I said, like I'm sitting here, Tara's like, it's a small shrine room, so the Tara's like just about here in front of me usually in the mornings. And I don't usually meditate on Tara, but because I knew that I'd be speaking to you this evening, over the last few weeks I have been meditating on Tara, and there are different ways you can do a Tara visualization. You can imagine Tara in front of you. You can also imagine becoming Tara. So I've been reflecting a bit on that. This thing of like, what would it be to become like Tara, to become Tara herself? And for me, I think it's a little bit like just manifesting Tara's qualities, enlightened qualities in the world more and more. And one way, the traditional way to talk about manifestation of qualities is in terms of body, speech, and mind. So in terms of body, basically Tara is very, very quick to come to your aid. It's said that if you call on her, she just comes. She's very quick to help. And it's not just that she moves with speed, she's also very, very skilled. So I was reading this book, it's called Female Deities in Tantric Buddhism, and the chapter on Tara, Vasantra, who's the author of it, says something like, fools rush in. Yeah, but Tara does not. Tara is not a fool, and she doesn't rush in. Because what she has is skill. She knows how to help, and she knows what would help. There's something of a quality of martial arts about it. I was talking to a long-term Tara practitioner, so somebody who's meditated on Tara for over 10 years, and they were telling me that for them, Tara is a little bit like Princess Mononoke. Do people know that cult anime film? It's very, very good. And Princess Mononoke is like this Japanese princess who's like saving the world, basically. And she's trained for a long time. She's trained for a long time in whatever will help beings. Earlier this evening, Stern Manas was talking about cartoon puffs of air. In Princess Mononoke, you just get like Princess Mononoke kind of like in this shape or something, and then like lines coming out behind her. So I'm sort of trying to show how fast she's moving. Okay. So the quickness to help, so all of us can manifest a kind of quickness to help. I think Stern Manas and I were doing the text messages. So if you're on the urban retreat, you would have received a text, you've received 2 texts every day, and there's definitely one that urges you to be generous, like right now. And quickness to help can be in quite practical ways. It doesn't have to be in a special spiritual way. We can just help alleviate suffering. We can just help beings wherever we are. Is Susie in the room still? She was here earlier. Anyway, Susie and I, we go to this really beautiful, I think, in my eyes, beautiful yoga place in Houston. It's a very, very small place. These days, some yoga centers, they can just look like boutique hotels, really. They kind of like, walk into the lobby and there's like modern art. This place isn't like that at all. It's at the bottom of a council estate in Houston. And it's such a holy place. We have a teacher there, and his name is Hamish. And recently, I think it was earlier in September, there was this morning where it was really pouring down with rain, and that kind of like really horrible rain where it just gets everywhere. So I was wearing like all my rain gear, including wellies, but the rain was so bad that it kind of like got into my wellies, but from the top, So by the time I arrived at this yoga place, I was just basically quite wet. And my yoga teacher met me at the door, and he said, I've turned the heaters on. So if you want to put your shoes and socks on the heaters, or whatever it is that you want to put on the heaters, you can do that. And I just thought, wow, that is such a nice thing to say. That was like exactly what I needed, because otherwise I was like I was facing basically a whole day with wet socks inside wellies, which is really not a nice thought at all. So he knew exactly what to do, and he said it very, very quickly. And also, I don't know if you're, there's probably like not many other yoga teachers in the room, but basically if I was a yoga teacher, I wouldn't want people like hanging their wet bits of stuff around the yoga room, But that's basically what Hamish encouraged us to do, because he knew that otherwise we'll all just be like wet for the rest of the day. So it can just be like helping in very, very practical ways. And there's a little epilogue to the story, because it's not just that we try to help people, but when people try to help us, we need to say yes. So at the end of after my yoga practice, I always stay and really try to thank my yoga teacher as fulsomely as possible. He's such a special guy. It's very, very important to me in my life. And there was another guy, a friend, not that I have known him, I know him very well, but I've known him for quite a long time. So both of us were talking to our yoga teacher, and I was just really thanking him for putting the heaters on, allowing us to dry our clothes, and just sort of said like how warm and dry my feet feel. And my friend Arthur said, "Oh, I didn't do that." And I was like, "Oh, did you not know?" And he said, no, I knew. Hamish said to like put your shoes and socks on the heaters, but I just didn't do it. So like I said, I've known him for a long time. And I was just sort of teasing him. I was like, "What, is it like some macho guy thing?" And he just said, "No, it's like a stupid thing." So when Tara comes to help, say yes. Yeah, say yes. Okay. So the other aspect of becoming a bit more like Tara that I was reflecting on, in this thing of like being quick, the quick way to enlightenment, I thought was the area of speech. I've been reflecting quite a lot on speech, because I think the way that we communicate with each other can either really bring us into connection with other people, and like hopefully like a deep, intimate, loving connection, or we can also constantly just reinforce me in here and you out there. Yeah. And when we do that, we reinforce this sort of misunderstanding that we're fixed and we're solid and that we need protecting from the world. So Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, who is one of Sangharaskshita, who's the founder of our movement, one of his 8 main teachers, he says this really, really lovely quote. So in the Heart of Compassion, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche says, "Your real enemy is your belief in a self. The idea of an enduring self has kept you wandering helplessly in the lower realms of samsara for countless lifetimes. It is the very thing that now prevents you from liberating yourself and others from conditioned existence. If you simply let go of the thought of I, you would find it easy to be free, and to free others too. If you overcome the belief of a truly existing self today, you will become enlightened today. If you overcome it tomorrow, you will be enlightened tomorrow. But if you never overcome it, you will never gain enlightenment." Okay? Let's just read it again. Your real enemy is your belief in a self. The idea of an enduring self has kept you wandering helplessly in the lower realms of samsara for countless lifetimes. It is the very thing that now prevents you from liberating yourself and others from conditioned existence. If you simply let go of the thought of I, you would find it easy to be free and to free others too. If you overcome the belief in a truly existing self today, you will become enlightened today. And if you overcome it tomorrow, you will be enlightened tomorrow. And if you never overcome it, you will never be enlightened. So, strong words from Khyentse Rinpoche. So how do we even identify, this I? How do we even identify that we're doing that thing of being fixed and separate and making a me in here and a you out there? One of the ways I've become quicker at spotting doing this thing is when I notice that I'm being defensive being defensive, that's basically it. Being defensive, being blaming, when I hold on to grudges and resentments, yeah? So in those situations, they're quite painful situations, and we definitely notice a me, and we definitely notice a them, especially if you're prone to blame, like I am. So, at the moment, I'm working for a charity called Future Dharma Fund. It's a very, very good charity. And it's a charity that's connected to the London Buddhist Centre. And it's a Buddhist charity in that we mainly fund and make grants to other Buddhist projects. And it's also a Buddhist charity in that everyone who works for the charity, all 10 of us, are Buddhists. Yeah. And one of the most striking things I've noticed about working for this particular, with this particular group of people, is there's a very, very high default level of communication. Basically, the default communication level is very good. And I think the reason for this good level of communication is that I've got a boss who's very good at apologizing. And that is such an unusual, such a countercultural thing. Because in most places, the higher up the hierarchy you go, the less likely you are to apologize. The more people want to save face, I guess. They don't want to lose face, they want to save face. And the less likely they are to apologize. Yeah, so Nandavajra, just rejoicing him for a moment, he's just very good and very, very quick at apologizing. Not like the kind of like English, oh, sorry. I don't know, even if it's my fault, sorry. It's like genuinely saying, oh, that was really badly done. I'm really sorry. In fact, you can tell me about it. Yeah. And I just find it so striking and so unusual. I must say, I've never worked for anyone like that. And I just feel like I'm really learning and really sort of learning to apologize myself. You know, it is a practice. It is hard. I noticed actually in the pandemic, I got out of the habit of apologizing because there wasn't anyone to bump up against because we're all locked down in our houses. So I just never had to do it. And then learning to do it again was like, it definitely cost me. So I feel like I'm in just really, really good conditions to notice little unskillfulnesses, like, you know, if I said something where someone just looks a bit upset or hurt, you know, just quite good to check it out. Not that I'm particularly good at apologizing. It's uncomfortable, isn't it? But it's a good discomfort. If there's unpleasant sensations that are actually very, very positive, that moment before you apologize, that's a very, very good unpleasant sensation. Okay. So finally, Tara is the quick way to enlightenment in terms of the mind. And in Buddhism, it's like really mind-heart. And she's a quick way to enlightenment through the mind-heart because she's really attractive. Yeah, she's a really, really attractive figure. And in fact, it's said that she's intensely beautiful. And this I think of as her Padma aspect, her lotus aspect. You know, in the start, I sort of talked about the magical right of fascination and attraction. You know, this is her manifesting that particular quality. She's made traditionally not of copper, but she's meant to be made of green light. She's made of green light. She's in the form of a 16-year-old princess, and she's adorned with a tiara with precious stones, necklaces and armlets and bracelets and a kind of like girdle around her thighs and anklets, and she's covered in rainbow silks. And she's also surrounded in this particular form by blue lotuses that perfectly match her beautiful blue eyes. And it's not just that she's physically beautiful, she's also really beautiful on the inside because she's the quintessence of compassion. So her physical form is a kind of like manifestation of inner beauty too. And because she's so beautiful, we want to spend time with her. Like I said, I used to teach yoga here at the LBC, and there were, I think, at least 2 models who used to come to our classes, but one in particular was like just gorgeous. And she used to often practice over there when I was teaching in the main shrine room. And I used to like have to keep telling myself to stop looking at her. But she was like so beautiful. And I think, you know, that's just what it's like, isn't it? Like, we like looking at attractive people. We like being around attractive people. And because Tara is so attractive, we want to be around her all the time. You know, we might not like to think that we're partial to beauty. In fact, sometimes in the spiritual life, we think that we shouldn't be attracted to beauty because, I don't know, maybe we're a bit afraid of our desires or some kind of like overhang from Christian conditioning, even if you were never really a Christian, that, you know, beauty is sinful. But that's not the sort of Buddhist conception of things. Like, beauty is really, really, really important, to have beauty in one's life. And not just, you know, sort of physical beauty, but kind of like inner beauty. The Buddhist word for beautiful is kalyana. It's also shubha, yeah? And shubha is a spiritual quality. We don't need to be afraid of Tara's beauty. The very, very last time I met Bhante Sangharaskshita, who's the founder of our movement, I was leading a retreat at Adhisthana. In fact, it was the winter retreat that Suranaga was talking about in the tea break, and also Michael and Theramanas were mentioning here. Bhante is dead now, and it's his death anniversary on Saturday, but he was still alive when I led the winter retreat. And I went to see him, and on the retreat, we were doing a lot of Tara invocations and Tara mantras, and just really, really sort of bringing Tara into our retreat. I had just I went to see Bhante, having just met a retreatant who was really freaked out by doing so much Tara invocations. I think he had done some ayahuasca ritual. Like, coming into contact with Tara was just like too much. So I told Bhante about that. He asked me, how is the retreat going? So I said that, you know, there's this retreatant, and they're having this experience, and Bhante said to me very, very clearly, there is nothing to fear of green Tara. And there's nothing to fear of green Tara. There's definitely nothing to fear from green Tara's beauty. We can allow ourselves to be fully attracted to her beauty. Because the more and more time we spend with Tara, the more and more time we spend with enlightened being, we steadily become more like Tara. We steadily become more like an enlightened being. We know this. We often conform to our context. If we're around people who swear a lot or watch a lot of like sweary films, that's what happens to us. If we spend a lot of time here at the Buddhist Center, you'll find yourself enjoying herbal teas. You know, we just sort of like become like other people. We spend our time more with Tara. We become more Tara-like. Okay, so I just want to finish on a bit of nuance. I was telling the team earlier that I sometimes listen to this podcast called You Are Dead to Me. Actually, I haven't listened to it for a long time, but I don't know if anyone else has heard of You Are Dead to Me? Yeah? Yeah, Ross is not nodding. It's probably not a very popular podcast. It's a history podcast where comedians meet historians. And there is this little bit of the podcast where it's what they call the nuance window, where they allow their non-comedian to speak uninterrupted for 2 minutes. This is like the BBC, so the interruptions are very mild. But I just wanted to finish on this thing of nuance, because in evoking Tara, what I've done is spoken in quite sort of eternalistic terms. I've sort of described Tara as her that I guess is sort of apart from me. Marietta, who's sitting by the door, we've been exploring this in our study group quite a lot. There is a danger in a mistaking that we can do, where we reify a being like Tara, a bodhisattva like Tara, as a metaphysical entity that can exist apart from what we can experience. Yeah, there's quite a lot of long words in that, but basically, the mistake we make is that Tara is a being, a she. Yeah. Describing Tara being like this, being like that, being like this, it's important because we do need an attractive goal that we move towards, a convincing and inspiring presence in our lives. But we also need to move beyond this thing of me in here and world out there. Yeah, we need to move beyond the sense of I'm over here and Tara's over there. Yeah. So it might be much more helpful to think of Tara as this incredibly positive force, almost a kind of, without making a reified metaphysical entity of the transcendental, a kind of transcendental force that can animate us, that can manifest through us, a force that we can align ourselves with. And when we align ourselves more and more with that force, we become agents of all accomplishing with wisdom. We become agents of compassion. We are able to act fearlessly. We are able to act with supreme generosity. We're able to give expression to our highest values, our deepest potential. And we're able to act in the service of liberation of all beings. And that is true compassion. It's not a sentimental sweetness. When we align ourselves with the forces that we're conveniently calling Tara, we bring enlightenment into the world. We manifest it and make it real. Okay. So I just want to finish by just chanting the Tara mantra. I texted Suryanaga earlier, but it looks like he might not have gotten my text. Would you like to start the Tara mantra? But Suryanaga is a Tara practitioner, so I feel like it's appropriate that Suryanaga starts us in the Tara mantra. So let's just sit quietly for a moment or two. I'll dim the lights. And, I've described Tara, and we've got Tara on the shrine. And the Tara mantra is simply a play on her name and a sound symbol, just like we've got a visual symbol. And what we can imagine is that as we call on Tara, Tara sort of does come into our lives, comes into the room. We won't make any offerings. We just sort of call on Tara, and then we'll allow the mantra to die away. And then in that silence after the end of the mantra, that's when Tara really appears. And then I'll ring a bell, and then we can all leave quietly. We'll keep this room in silence, and then we can say goodbye outside. Okay.
Om
So go well into the night, and see you tomorrow. You can leave your mats and cushions where they are.